3, 2, 1, go!
We are Paul Leonard,
And Bryce Graskowski.
and this is 20 Minutes of Fitness.
Yo, how's it going, Bryce?
Good, Paul. How you doing?
Well, things are doing pretty good, buddy. Things are doing pretty good. Take two.
Take two.
So, things are looking a little different around here. There's no TV behind you.
Oh, yeah, somebody stole it.
They
broke in
other
last night.
things not around. I guess that's the sign of you transitioning out of this place.
Yep. It's the end of days. We got 8 days left for me.
8 days left. That's nuts, actually.
It is nuts.
That's
It's
got to
really
be a
nuts.
crazy feeling for you, honestly.
Yeah, when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, man, there's only a couple more days of this left, and then I got to figure out what I'm going to do when I wake up in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. For a while, just not have to get up, which is kind of nice.
That's going to be nice, yeah.
So, as we're coming close to the end of your 12 years of gym ownership,
Woo, crazy.
I figured it'd be a good topic for us to go through 2 separate podcasts. One, all the things that you really think you did a great job of, and like advice for people on a positive thing of things like
buying
that.
a gym, yeah.
And then, buying and running and like, having a gym. And then I was thinking next week we'd do another one that's very much so the other side of it, where it's like the things
Stuff
that you
you
think you should have done differently,
Yeah.
things that, and granted,
Pitfalls.
yeah, and you can't change anything about stuff like COVID happening, but what things could you change that would be positive for someone buying a gym or
Yep.
owning a gym, that kind of thing. So start with the positive side of things, because, you know, that way people will be more excited to listen to the negative.
Yeah. True.
No one wants to hear
Everybody-
about how good things
I know,
went. They want to hear about how
everybody-
it fucking sucked.
Everybody likes dirt. Yeah, it's the dirt.
So, so let's start out at the top. You started your first affiliate in the mainland
Yep, CrossFit Religion.
in 2010.
Yep, in Connecticut, Middletown, Connecticut.
And then you actually had 2 boxes at that time, right? Or how did that go?
At some
Give us the
point,
short version.
1 year.
Trying to make these 20 minutes each.
Yeah, right. We were like 4 years in, or 3 years in, something like that. And then we opened another gym in a neighboring town where they had like a Globo gym, and the lady was realizing she was losing money to CrossFit. So, because there was a guy going to open one in town, so she was like, "I'll pay you guys. I'll give you money I'll buy all the equipment. All you got to do is put somebody in place to coach it." So we were like, "Yeah, okay."
Oh.
And we'll collect money. Okay, sounds good.
So that's how the second location happened.
Yeah, so that worked out for a year, and she was funneling.
But you guys didn't run it.
She was, yeah. One of my coaches did, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, she was not sending people down to our gym. She was telling them, "Oh, you should take these classes before you do that." So she was kind of keeping people away from it. So we weren't able to build a very big clientele there.
Okay.
But in the same time, we also put the other guy out of business,
Okay.
which was the lady's point. So after that first year, we closed 2 months after the other guy did.
Oh, wow.
So
And then she stayed alive on her own? Or
yeah, I think they're probably still open. It's just a
It's a small gym.
key card, half the size of like it's about was that Anytime Fitness?
Okay, yeah.
Consider it like an Anytime Fitness. Yeah.
I see.
Where they have, yoga and Pilates and
Yeah.
then all the machines. So yeah,
Interesting.
it is what it is in a small town. So it worked out for us because we got rid of a competitor in a town over from us, and we preserved our original spot. So it did what I wanted it to do. So I spent about 5 years running CrossFit Religion, and then I just kind of got sick of the cold weather.
Yeah.
And I got the hell out of there.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So you sold that off, moved out here, and then you started out working for Keone, who owned CrossFit West Wahoo.
I worked for him for about a year. Well, exactly a year. And then he was like, you should own this gym now. I'm like, okay.
And that's something we can maybe talk a little bit about in the what didn't go well part from his perspective, because he bought a gym, ran it for a bit, and then sold it at a pretty significant loss.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can't speculate too much, but we can maybe talk about that a little bit in the next episode of
Absolutely.
Like some of the things that maybe weren't the best choices.
If you're buying a gym, some pitfalls there. And obviously I'm selling this one right now, so I could tell you, things that went well or whatnot there too.
Yeah.
But,
so then you ran it for a year, then you bought the gym out from him.
Yes.
And that's when he left the island, I believe, right?
Yeah,
More
pretty
or
much.
less.
About a year later, yeah.
And then now you've been running it since what year? Here?
Shoot, I don't know. 5 years.
It's been 5 years exactly?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yep.
So 5 years owning this place, started across the street, moved over here to make rent more affordable.
Yep, that was a good move. That was definitely, especially
getting
hindsight,
space that makes sense.
Like that's probably the thing that saved this gym from closing right when COVID happened. Because if we were in our old space, the rent was absolutely, and at that point it was absolutely ridiculous. We would have closed day one.
Yeah,
it would have just been like, nope, we're done, we're out. Yeah. So moving here, we moved here 6 months earlier, and moving here was huge because it cut our rent quite a bit, especially because we were being gouged over there. Yeah. But so we went down to less than half our rent here. So that enabled me to make back, be in the black, right? And those were our best 2 months were December and January before COVID. So
yeah,
moving in here was a great thing. Also, the smaller space.
And what, for people that aren't familiar with this place specifically, moving to a place that, even though it's much smaller, was cost effective.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
That's the biggest thing. Even though you cut out, I don't know how many square feet by moving over here.
It's like half the size. It's 2 bays to 1 bay. Yeah.
So by redesigning the rig and everything, we can run the same size of classes more or less.
Pretty close, yeah. You're sharing some equipment and space a little more, but for the most part, it's that's probably the number one thing that I do well is set up gyms.
Yeah.
Coming up with ideas of how to save space and create space, really. Yeah. And because we had a ton of equipment, we still have a ton of equipment, more than most gyms double our size. People always come in here and they're like, "Oh wow, you guys got everything," and it's like, yeah, we do, and it's hard to jam that all into a space and then still have it usable, right? And
yeah, you got to store things places.
A lot of gyms,
a lot of thought.
Yeah, a lot of gyms are stifled by their size because they have just poor management of space and they cut down lots of dead space, right? Like, every gym owner, if you do a poll of the worst things that you have in your gym, number one is jerk blocks, right? We got rid of those pretty quick. Number 2 is GH or reverse hypers. We still have one, but we can actually hoist it out of the way if we needed that corner, and it's attached to a wall.
Yeah.
And then
it's kind of filling dead space anyway. There's not much else that could go.
Pretty much dead
spot.
Space right there. And then number 3 is the GHD, which we completely eliminated those into portable units, which I've now created even better portable units, which I wish I made 3 years ago. But space savings, huge. Definitely, probably the number one thing that I would say I'm proud of is space saving.
And even taking this massive rig and fitting it into this small space in a way that still allowed it to be fully functional.
Yeah.
And like honestly, your ingenuity of using a combination of multiple types of rigging to build out one that worked well. So that's definitely something you did really well.
Yeah. I'm good at putting stuff together. The wall ball racks, right, up off the floor, that's always huge. And more gyms should definitely utilize that instead of the old school vertical racks, right? Like,
and most gyms have lots of vertical space.
Yeah.
And that's something that's maybe underutilized in a lot of gyms, is that vertical space.
So vertical space, if you own a gym out there, try to think up, not out. Every square foot of floor costs money, so make sure you're not wasting it with storage. And that's why a GHD and a reverse hyper are horrible things to have in a gym. They just waste. Like one GHD is something like 20 square feet that you're never going to use.
Yeah.
You might get that guy that wants to do a bunch of them a couple times a week. Maybe even you program it in every week. It doesn't matter. It's a waste of space. Guaranteed. Do sit-ups. Do knees to elbow. Do anything. You don't need them.
Fair enough.
So that would be. So it's huge.
So what's your next item, would you say, that you've done really well outside of equipment usage?
Things I like is building equipment, right? Repurposing stuff, and that's like you were saying with the rig. We went from a 10-foot spans. We paired it up with the old Rogue rig, which is 6 feet between stations, 7 feet between stations, and just paired them all together to fit more stations in this little gym. So we have 8? We have 8 squat stations.
8 full setups,
double that at least for pull-ups, and then 8 full setups of ropes and rings, all that good stuff.
Yeah, the trawlers make that helpful.
And then like I made the, somebody gave me a Smith machine. I turned it into a tricep extension unit. It's up in the racks. We weren't even able to use it here because it does eat up room. But I built a belt squat station, which is it works just like the $8,000 Louis Simmons version with the cable. Which I was really happy the way that came out, right?
Yeah.
And then the GHDs that I was talking about, those came out great. In my original gym, I built a reverse hyper.
Okay.
Out of, those chairs that, you could do dips, you could do pull-ups, and it's got the arms that you grab the handles, and you could do leg raises to the front. You know that one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They're in a lot of people have them in their house. I built it out of that. I just cut the thing, tipped it, and built the entire reverse hyper with that and the thing for leg extensions on a bench, the cheap benches, and it worked great. It actually was a little more comfortable to use than that thing, than an actual official one. It was pretty cool. Yeah, and I used the preacher bar attachment for a bench, and I used that for the front pad so that it had a nice, which is actually how Rogue's making a lot of them now. They have the pad that goes around, and they're actually able to do. They've turned them into a GHD and reverse hyper, which looks really cool. I was like, oh man, I'd like to figure out a way to build that.
It is a great idea, but that is a huge space taker.
Yeah, it's huge.
In a small gym like this, you'd have to have some serious square footage.
Those things are monstrous. Yeah.
But especially those ones because you have to have big space on either side of it.
They've got to be so heavy too.
Oh yeah.
Wherever you're putting them, it's staying. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. The other thing I would say is design. I'm big for your overall look, right? You go into most gyms, they're absolutely disgusting. Our old gym was gross.
Yeah.
With the green walls, nothing made sense. I think it had the blue Coast wall ball targets up still.
No, they got painted
with
over.
Green walls. Did they?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
did.
I think they're at my house and they're still blue.
No, they got painted.
Maybe.
And they had the logo on it.
Okay.
I think you just have some of the leftover
Yeah,
ones.
maybe. Those but in general that gym was just there was nothing going on in there, right? We had some pictures up which were nice, but there wasn't any design. So this gym obviously tons of design, right?
Lots of style, and putting the plywood against the walls was a clever move for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So that way it protects that
kick
drywall.
through the wall. Yeah, but design and continuity of design, right? You don't want my big one was I wanted that Hawaiian flag painted on the one wall for people that drop in to take pictures. They love taking pictures in front of it, right? And so that automatically changed our colors because over there was green, which was basically green and black.
Yeah.
So you don't want a red, white, and blue flag on one wall and then green on the other wall. It just starts clashing and looking horrendous. So I just changed the colors to red, white, and blue and a little gray, black, right?
Yeah.
And then everything flows together. Also, I did that because I knew F45 was just opening up.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, we'll make this clean and the same red, white, and blue look they have.
Yeah.
So, you confuse people.
Becomes a little bit of an easy transition for people.
Yeah, exactly. So that's definitely good. And that goes with everything. You're trying to build a brand, right?
Oh, yeah.
And your logo, your interior, all of that stuff, even your sign on the wall, right? You got to give thought to all that stuff and make it all work. I've seen gyms, they have pretty good logo and then they change it to something stupid. That makes no sense, doesn't have anything to do with fitness, CrossFit, whatever the case may be. And it's like, why'd you do that? Oh, to freshen it up. It's like, man, you
had some brand before and you're losing it.
Yeah, so you really got to think about your brand, and I think we do that pretty good.
Yeah.
With the setup in here. And using the wall, that was a concept I thought of a long time ago, was putting up the major tenets of CrossFit on the one wall so that if somebody came in and you started talking to them, they're like, hey, what is CrossFit? You don't have to be like, oh, hey, he'll tell you. You just look at the wall. It's written on the wall.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, what's your diet you guys follow? That's written on the wall too.
Yeah.
Oh, what's the most important thing? That's written on the wall too. Right. It's
Yeah.
all right there. And that was my reasoning for that. So informative and easy for visually for somebody that's walking in off the street to be like, oh, I get this. This makes sense. Okay. They get to see it all.
So now what about as far as like membership and class times and things like that? What do you think you did well with that stuff?
I mean, we added tons of classes. So I think we
so
added
you tried to have enough classes that anytime someone wanted to be fitnessing.
Yeah, pretty much. And at times there's actually been too many classes here, like the 7:30 at night back in the day. Remember, we dumped that like right when I came here. I said to Keone, because I think you were coaching it, right?
Yeah, I was coaching it for
you and I ended up coaching that, and then I was like, man, this is like we're wasting time here.
Yeah.
We would have what two, 3 people every
at most
if that
5.
at most.
Yeah.
And
there'd be sometimes where one person would show up.
And me and you wanted to have a comp training team. So that was our only time to do it. So that made sense. But yeah, eliminating that one was good. And that's actually what Keone brought me in originally for. He had 23 coaches. So he actually brought me in to eliminate, to just take a look at everybody and be like, okay, this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He's out. Like there was a couple of those. I don't even remember their names.
Yeah.
And you probably wouldn't either. That's how insignificant they were.
Yeah.
And that's what he brought me in for.
At that point, there was so many coaches.
Yeah, it was
and
insane.
he was just doing trade memberships for all of them. So
oh God, the whole
that was a
thing
lot of people making no money.
There was a lot of members not paying money either.
Yeah.
I did an okay job of getting rid of all the deals.
Yeah.
And it's really hard when people have been here so long and they're all friends, and then you're like, yeah, man, I'm not giving you that same deal. Like, well, I'm going to go somewhere else. Well, see ya. The deal thing is a problem, right?
So as a new CrossFit owner or someone stepping in,
don't make any deals. Even for like I had a couple deals that I think Jeff, he might have been the only one, and then obviously coaches, but Jeff did all our photography for like anytime we did an event for the open. If we did a diet challenge, which if you add that up, and he does a really good job too, right?
Yeah, great photographer.
And he's fast. So that was beneficial for me to have him until COVID, which kind of killed a lot of that stuff from happening for a long time. So, but in general...
Then it wasn't a great deal anymore on your end.
Right. But in general, I feel like if things running normal and you're doing your normal stuff, having somebody like that, you're definitely going to save money there. But in general, you're better off being like, hey, we'll have a running tab. You charge me what you normally charge.
Yeah.
I charge you what I normally charge. We could exchange money at the end of the year or something, whoever's up, right?
Yeah.
Or just keep it going if it's close, right? But do it that way. Don't be like, well, I'll give you this membership, and then if you don't, because that's one thing you don't necessarily, like through COVID, I didn't take advantage of having a photographer, right?
Yeah.
So is that several $1,000 membership a year, is it beneficial for you? So you got to make it beneficial for you. But as far as that, I did pretty good job with killing the deals and getting everybody kind of on the same page for the most part.
That makes sense. Everybody kind of paying one set of pricing.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of the deals mistakes that people make
and that was so hard for when I started, because you had a different management style with Keone where he cut people deals to get the asses in the seats, which is okay, I guess, but it doesn't help your bottom line. And
well, now you have fuller classes without any revenue coming in.
And it went from like, when I took over, we had like 100, on the high end, about 140 members, but shit, 40 of them weren't paying.
Yeah.
So it's like we were able to cut those people out, and I'm not losing any money because of it. Like, yeah, there's less people in the gym, but it didn't cost me anything.
Yeah.
And
it probably made a better experience for the people that are there paying still, because there's not as many people in the classes.
Yeah.
You're not fighting for equipment as much.
I personally like full classes, which is, one thing that is unfortunate as of late, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that the camaraderie and the competitive nature and having somebody to push against is what makes CrossFit work, and you don't get that when you have 3-4 people in a class.
No, I like big classes as well, as long as there's enough stuff.
Yeah, of course.
I hate doing a workout where I have to wait for something in the middle of the workout.
Oh yeah, no, I know.
And that's more programming issues.
That's
when we have big
programming,
classes,
yeah.
right?
Which is where I would go next. Is I feel like I do programming well.
Yeah.
Use of space, use of equipment, planning it so that it's not, so it makes sense. Like when we were doing the CAP programming, and it would be like, okay, we're using these 4 pieces of equipment for the workout, blah blah blah. We got shoulder press and then a WOD. And there's no kettlebell in it, but for the warm-up, we're going to work kettlebell swings.
Just to get more stuff out.
Because they're coming up Friday, and it's like, why would we get more stuff out? And then it just creates I could see if the kettlebells were out at the stations, but like ours are on a shelf, so everybody's going to...
And most affiliates are.
Yeah, and most affiliates, I don't know.
Most affiliates don't have a kettlebell at each station.
No, and if they do, you don't have the proper weights, because, more than half the people in a CrossFit gym are scaling something.
Yeah,
and if they're not, you have the wrong clientele.
Yeah,
you have just people that are trying to be athletes, and they're not generally the best members to have. So yeah, I definitely think about programming a lot with equipment use. I also don't like workouts where there's 50,000. Like, we'll do it because Scrappy sets it up in the morning, like Filthy 50, which has 7 pieces of equipment or whatever it is. There's 10 movements. But it's like, that's a pain in the ass. Luckily, he sets it up, and I don't have to deal with it. I just got to put it away, which is also a pain in the ass. But, yeah. And then programming overall, I think we have a good mix of, I try not to be biased, right? As much as I'm sure I am biased. Like, I don't put thrusters in a lot, so that's because I don't like thrusters.
Yeah.
So there's a bias there, but for the most part,
you try to keep it pretty across the board.
I think besides thrusters, everything else is pretty general across the board. No strength bias, really. No. We do lift a lot of weights here because people like lifting weights here.
Yeah, and that's more the community than it is.
Yeah, and again, that's knowing your clientele, which you don't get if you're doing. What do you call it? Like paying for a program that somebody else is building. You better really like the way that person runs their gym, because that's what you're buying, right? Like when we were doing Spiel programming, the biggest issue with that is, well, we've been to Spieler's gym. He has about 5 kettlebells and 3 pairs of dumbbells, and it's like, he didn't put a lot of that stuff in there. And if it would just be like a hold and a march or something. There wasn't a lot of variance with those 2 pieces of equipment. But on the other hand, he had 20 Echo bikes. So he's throwing an Echo bike workout in there all the time. And also from September, October until May, there's no running in Utah. And so he was very short with the running. And I'd experienced that coming from Connecticut. I remember we would run.
You're not programming it much in the winter.
We'd try to run once before the Open, because the Open would start. We'd be like, shit, we haven't even been outside for like a long run or anything. It's like we'd get 1 or 2 in if we were lucky. So here is totally different. We're running all year long. There's no reason to ever stop running. So that's a situational thing for your climate, that if you're paying for programming, if they're not in the same climate as you, it's going to be, you're going to see slight differences there that you normally, to me, you got to be out, you go outside.
And now Spiel does program lots of running because he has a whole lineup of assault runners.
Ah, nice.
Because he just bought a huge new facility.
That's huge. Yeah, he built that new facility. That's awesome.
So it's,
but
I'm sure that's definitely very valid, is by programming to your own audience.
Yeah.
That's definitely changed a lot as far as...
Yeah, it's huge. So I feel like I do pretty good programming. And people seem that that's one thing I hear a lot when we were doing the CAP programming. They're like, once I said we were going back to mine, a whole bunch of people were like, oh, thank God, I love your programming. There's people that have been to, a couple people in this gym that have been to, they've been members of 10 gyms over the years because they're like military. And they say that, like, as far as programming, they enjoy mine the most. So that means a lot. Like some of them, one of them's from like Invictus. That was his last gym. The other 2, they're like all over the place. But yeah, so I'm like, they've been to big name gyms, and they're like, oh, yours is better. I'm like, oh shit, okay, which is really good because I'm going into programming, right?
Yeah.
So that's probably a good thing. It's definitely a strong suit. So, and I enjoy it. I really like all that stuff. So, yeah.
So, last thing then I would say is how about as far as coaching and stuff goes, would you say that scaling it down from having 23 coaches to having, how many coaches do you have like actually coaching right now?
Like six, 7 maybe, 6.
Did you do that well, or in retrospect would you do that differently? Because you coach a lot right now.
Yeah, I coach a lot, but that's also a after product of COVID too. We lost 5 coaches during COVID, so that didn't come back or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I did okay with that. I would definitely say one of the things that I would have liked to have done better is have, and we'll get into that, is the coaching, right? Is better. A better.
I was curious if that was on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. A better plan for coaches. Yeah.
So on that note, we'll talk about that. Pick this back up next week.
Go.
Peace.
See ya.